Here is a quick outline of Application Paper 3 due in verbal behavior. First, you are asked to interpret and explain Skinner's statement that in the case of sequelic intraverbal behavior, the more complex the stimulus pattern, the more specific the verbal occasion, and the stronger the control exerted over a single response. This is on page 76 of the hard copy of verbal behavior and on page 110 of the PDF. If you include that quote, and you probably should to orient the reader to what you're talking about, be sure to cite it in APA style. It will be helpful for you to reference convergent stimulus control, multiple stimuli acting upon one behavior to make that behavior more likely. Note, though, that Skinner does not use these terms convergent and divergent stimulus control. You can review those in the Edpuzzles from Modules 3 and 5. Next, give an example of the utility of convergent stimulus control when using a prompting procedure to teach a sequelic response. Specify which response you're targeting, the SD that you want to eventually control the response, and the prompt that you're presenting in order to make that response more likely. Remember that in the case of a sequelic, both the response and the controlling SD must be verbal, with no point-to-point correspondence between them. The prompt, however, may or may not be verbal. You could use a nonverbal stimulus as a prompt. Then, give an example of a sequelic response that may be made more likely by multiple verbal stimuli in day-to-day life. For example, the verbal stimulus "tell me about yourself" might occasion my sequelic response of "I teach at National Louis University." However, if I'm presented with the more complex stimulus pattern "tell me something exciting about yourself," I might say I like to go scuba diving. One time I dove in completely underwater caves in Mexico. But I would probably not tell that story if someone just said, "Tell me about yourself." Finally, say more about why different responses are occasioned by individual verbal stimuli versus verbal stimuli in combinations with each other, with reference to conditional stimulus discrimination. For example, why would one respond differently to "tell me about yourself" versus "tell me something exciting" versus "tell me something exciting about yourself"? What is conditional stimulus discrimination? You covered this topic way back in ABA 500, and it was also touched upon in ABA 510. You may want to check out the relevant chapter in Catania's text, The ABCs of Applied Behavior Analysis. If you do reference that text, be sure to cite it in APA style.